This is one of my favorite views in the tank. This tank has had quite an adventure, and I can't believe it is 7 years old. And it's really surpassed all my expectations, and it still keeps surprising me every day. So I can't wait to share this with you. Let's have a look at my 7-year Reef of the Month SPS Reef tank. Hey, what's up, Reefers? I'm Reefer Matt, and welcome back to the Reef Cave. In today's video, we're going to take a look at my 7-year SPS aquarium. That's right, this tank has been in operation for 7 years now, and we'll take a closer look at it and see what makes it tick. And I'll give you like a little closer view than I have before at all the different things on it. So let's have a look. All right, how you guys doing? I'm Reefer Matt, and this is my 75-gallon SPS tank, which just reached 7 years old on January 6th. I'll put a picture right here of when I just started it. I cycled it with the light that came with it. This is just a Marineland 75-gallon aquarium that I got from PetSmart. So it came with like a little light that obviously I couldn't use with coral, so I used it to cycle the tank, and then I added some different lights later on. This tank has changed a lot throughout the years, and I've always wanted to keep just SPS in it. This was my challenge tank to see if I could keep SPS, and I wasn't always so lucky. When I first started it out, it was about 6 to 8 months old. When I was really starting to stock it, I did put a couple frags in it. I cycled this thing for 4 months, believe it or not. And that might have been a mistake there too. I should have just added fish into it. But after that 4 months, I added fish and a couple test corals, and those seemed to do okay. So then I went to a frag swap, and things just kind of nosedived from there. Hey you, yeah you, welcome to the channel. I'm Reefer Matt. While you're here, why don't you stick around and subscribe? I hope to help you with your tank. I'm not an influencer. I'm a reefer just like you, and I'm here to help. So please, hang out for a while. Tell me about your tank. Like I said, the tank was only 6 to 8 months old, so it wasn't quite ready for SPS at the time, but persistence definitely paid off. And as you can see here, the tank is doing great. And so are the fishies. That's what I like about these coral is they're reef building coral. So the fish naturally have a little habitat to hang out in. See that? See them little damsels? That's why I like having little damsels in my tank, because they live in the coral. And it's really cool to look at. And those are called lemon damsels. And I have 3 of them in here. And they do a pretty good job of helping with like little critters and stuff too, that may pop up from, here and there every once in a while. And I just did a video on Acropora care. If you haven't seen it yet, I'll put a link right here for you to check it out. But this is pretty much a good mixture of encrusting coral and Acropora. And this was definitely what I wanted as far as the type of coral that are in it. I've always wanted it to be an SPS tank, but I did go with what I thought were beginner-friendly SPS at the time. And then I added on the Acropora besides the green slimer afterwards. All right, I'm going to try not to get much of a reflection on me here. I'm sitting in front of the tank now, and I'll just hang back here and kind of zoom in, and then we'll take a look at the top of the tank and everything in a little bit. So this green slimer was one of the very first coral that I put in here, and it's actually a pretty hardy coral, like they say. It pretty much has grown out about as big as it's going to get. It was in the past, it grew across here, and I fragged it back many times, but the last year or so, it's pretty much stayed just like that. And I just noticed that I'm starting to get new growth tips on it. So maybe it is going to start growing some more, I don't know, but it's pretty much stayed the size of last year. But at first, it was just a little stick, I think it was about 1.5 inch frag when I got it. And I paid like 30 bucks for it, and it took off after about a good 6 months or so after I put it in the tank. So the tank was probably about a good year and a half at that time before it really started to take off. It sat pretty stagnant for a while. And down here, we have some leptoseris. There's my buddy Sarge. And I got this from a local reefer. And this thing has really taken off lately too. And as you can see, there's leptoseris there, there's pavona there, and there's a Jedi mind trick Acropora here, and they're both hammering that Jedi mind trick. And it's trying to creep away up there. See that? I hope it makes it. Hope it at least gets a little patch down there. We'll see. But throughout the years, it wasn't always like that. These were all separated, and pretty much where this ridge is right here, that used to be the mind trick as well. And then over here too. And these two just really, really hammered it over the last year or so. So down here I have a little bit of Acropora digitata, and I always break a piece of that off when I'm servicing the tank because detritus collects right here from these guys, as a matter of fact. That's urchin poop basically. But they do such a good job of cleaning the glass and stuff, so I don't mind it. But it collects there, and I get my siphon hose out and I siphon it out when I do water changes, but I always break a piece of it off. So then I put that in my frag tank. And then here is one of the Higer gyres. I'll put a link right here if you're interested in them, but I do use them and I'm very happy with them. I actually bought this one and the other one in the tank. Higer is a product sponsor for this channel, but I honestly like to support them because they do have good products. So it's not just about, you know, getting stuff for free. It's about finding the right things for my tank that work well, and I'm very happy with these. And it is time to take it out and clean it, even though my urchins and my snails are trying the best right now. So I'm going to bust out my handy magnifier lens here. This is what I use for close-ups for my videos. If you're wanting to make coral videos or take some good pictures, I highly recommend these little lenses here. This one's from Flipper. And I bought this, by the way, so it's not a sponsor thing or anything. And you got to kind of play with your phone settings. There it goes. It just went into macro mode. And you got to find the right focus for it. All right, I think I got it there. So you see that white little bit there? That's actually a sponge. And I don't know the scientific name of that sponge or what it's called or anything. But I do know what it does. And it can smother coral. So if you see that in your tank, you may want to remove it. However, at least so far where it's at, there's little spots in between where the coral's growing, and it's okay. So far where it's at in here, I'm not too worried about it. But if you see that in your tank, you may want to remove it because it can smother coral. It'll just keep growing over the coral, and the coral will close up, and it'll kill the coral. So just keep an eye on it if you see that in your tank. And over here, you can see the Acropora is really attacking this Acropora here. I definitely got to frag out this Acropora soon. Otherwise, they're just going to grow together and take that coral out, and I definitely don't want that to happen. The leptoseris down here, growing awesome like usual. I did notice, however, that this Acropora back here, you see that? It's actually winning the fight over that leptoseris, which is sort of surprising, but maybe not. And it's starting to grow over it, so it'll be really interesting in a few more years to see what happens back in this corner. And right here, this castaway Acropora is looking beautiful. It has grown back since last February, and I'm very happy to see it back in action. And I even got some new, you can see the growth ridge there. So it has really taken off, and that's just very surprising compared to where it was in February. I'm going to hang out right here for a second, and we'll see if a little fishy pokes his head out there. Yep, there he is. That's that little lemon damsel's home. It's pretty cool. He's got a little cave in there, and he just kind of chills out, and I'll come out of there every once in a while. So somewhere in this tank, I have 7 fish. And I didn't want to do a high fish load in this tank to keep the nitrate down. And that didn't work out too well anyway, because I feed a flake food and it's high in protein, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together for a long time. And that's what's adding a lot of nitrate to the tank. And then the coral naturally remove the phosphate, and I have to dose phosphate. And the nitrate's usually like around 20, 25 in here. At least that's where I want to keep it anyway. It goes higher if I let it go. So that's why there's not as many fish in here. But I may add a couple once I address that. I don't mind the nitrate getting up there a little bit, but I don't want it to get in like the 30s and 40s and stuff. So I constantly have to keep it in balance and check it. not really balanced. It's just where I want to keep it because I have seen issues when it gets too high. So up here is my favorite view of the tank because I can check out any problems that are going on. And as you can see, there's just coral touching coral everywhere in this tank. So it's kind of important where you put things. And sometimes it's just a guess. You know, like these two Acropora here, I got lucky. I think they're compatible. And I just kind of guessed. They weren't touching when I put them in there, but they grew into each other. And Monty Cap, that likes to shade things, so you don't want to put your favorite coral underneath it. But it does create a cool home for fishies, like I said earlier. And I do have a chalice back here. Look at that. I tried to get rid of it. Every time I try to get it out of there. At one point in time, I just put it in there because I didn't have another tank to put in at the time, probably about 4 years ago maybe. This Hollywood Stunner, and it just keeps growing back, and I keep pruning it, and it keeps growing back. It's okay in here, but it likes to sting other coral, like this Montipora setosa back here. And I want that Monty to grow out. It used to be, back in the day, the Monty setosa used to grow all around here. And yeah, they just keep growing and growing into each other, and every once in a while I have to prune them. Right now it's in the evening, so my Reef Bright strips are off, and the Kessels are going to go towards a bluer spectrum for the night. There's that Walt Disney. Everybody likes to look at the Disney. It's cool. I mean, it is my favorite coral, but I don't see money when I look at it. This is my favorite coral. I really enjoy it. And I have to frag this guy right here, this blue and purple one, because it's more aggressive than the Disney, and it will kill it. It'll touch it and sting it, like there's a little bit there. So I constantly got to look around and make sure everybody's getting along. And then here's a little area where the Trias likes to settle, and I constantly have to remove that with the turkey baster. I usually just vacuum it out, that way it's not blowing around the tank. And then this bird's nest back here, I got to trim this out because what happens is it'll get so big, it'll block flow. So I won't get any flow around here, and it'll choke off flow to this side of the tank. So I have to trim that back soon too. But yeah, up here I get to see all the different problems that are going on. And also look at all the cool colors. The top of the coral are where they're the most colorful because they're directly reflecting the light. So this Hyger gyre here is doing great. I did a video on this if you want to check it out here. And I like it because it's like a half a gyre, so I can put it there and I don't have to worry about it directly blowing on this Acro right here. But I really like this gyre, and it is time to clean it obviously. But it does a good job of circulating flow back towards the other side of the tank because my return nozzle is there and it blows it this way. This return right here is only for my UV sterilizer, and I rarely use that. I only use that when I see a little bit of dino or something in the tank. I'll go ahead and kick that on and it'll wipe that dino out because I usually get the Ostreopsis, so it'll take care of that. But for flow in this tank, I have that gyre there, the one down there in the back, and the one in the front that I showed you earlier. And these rocks are sitting right in the middle of the tank. I have a space in the back and I have a space in the front, and really I should have given myself a little more space in the front because this thing's sort of a pain to clean the glass. I didn't count on the coral growing so much towards the front of the glass as they have, so a little too late now for that, but I just keep it trimmed. But yeah, I have a space in the back. See if I can get around here. See that? So that allows flow to go on the back of the rock. And it circulates throughout the whole system. That's a pretty cool view too. I do have polycarbonate lids on this tank, and honestly they're way too thin. I think these are maybe 1/8 inch or 3/16 or something. I should have went with the 1/4 inch, and I'm going to. The reason why I have these lids on this tank is for two reasons. The first reason is to help keep fish from jumping out. I really haven't had that issue lately, knock on plastic, but that's what they're there for, one of the reasons anyway. The other reason is to protect my lights. These are Kessel A360X and A360XE lights on a Reef Bright fixture. And these lights cost more than the entire tank and all the coral and everything, and probably even the apex. The lights are the most expensive. And that's just because at the time, let's see, about 5 or 6 years ago, I like that shimmer. And that's basically at the time all that was available besides metal halides to get that shimmer. So that's why I went with the Kessels. And honestly, I like the Kessel logic that's in them too. You can't really mess up the spectrum too much, but you can tune them to how you like them to look. And I do have the little dongle on them too to control it with my phone. But honestly, I just set it. Where's that dongle? Dongle's right there. I just set it and leave it. I don't sit there and mess with it. But that's why the lids are there, is to keep fish from jumping out and to protect my lights. And these are not reflectors. These are just shades. I 3D printed those. I'm going to try to keep the light out of your eyes. But those are so when I'm sitting in my chair in the room, if I ever get time to do that, I don't want that light spill hitting me in the eyes. So I just 3D printed those. I embedded some magnets in them, and I put them on there, and they worked out pretty darn good, and I'm happy with them. All right, so down here is my sump area, and my sump is just a 29-gallon aquarium. I think it's actually one of those Aqueon aquariums that they used to have at Petco for like half off or something. $1 a gallon, I think, back in those days. And that's what I use for my sump. It does have a single baffle in it. Somewhere, right around there somewhere. I gotta clean my glass. But that baffle is to hold water level for my protein skimmer back there. That's a Simplicity 120 skimmer. And it works pretty good, actually. It's kind of crowded right now because I added this algae scrubber here. It's an ice cap one, I think. And that kind of helps okay. But that's why I have a single baffle in there, is for the protein skimmer. And then both of my drains, this actually has 3 drains, but the 2 main ones go into a little sock like that. I didn't make like a little chamber. It's just kind of hokey, but it works. And I just clean the sock out about every 3 days. And then the third one is back there. So that one will make a lot of noise. It'll splash, and then I'll know I got a problem if that emergency drain's going. So that's why I set it up back there. This is my UV sterilizer, and believe it or not, it does work on this tank. I think this is a Coral Life one. I can't remember what size it is. I want to say it's like a 12 watt or something. But, you know, there's a lot of discussion out there about which size you're supposed to use in that. But honestly, when I use it, it works just fine. And I haven't had to use it in a long time. But this is set up as a backup now. So if I have to, I have it on a separate loop. There's a separate return pump there dedicated just for this UV sterilizer. And it goes out that return nozzle that I showed you earlier. So a new piece of equipment I got, and this is a Higer piece of equipment here that I got from Amazon. It's an ATO, and it works pretty good. I do Amazon reviews. I'm in a program for that, so I do written reviews there. And I'm pretty impressed with this, but the one thing I don't like about it is if the power goes off, it doesn't automatically turn itself back on. You have to manually turn it back on. So, you know, if you're not home and your power kind of goes off and goes on and you don't know about it, this thing just might not turn on. And next thing you know, the sump level's way down there. So I'm going to make sure that I note that in my review. But other than that, this thing is awesome. And I like it a lot. And this is one of my first product reviews back here that I did for Higer. I did a video on this. It's called the Autumn Cooling Fan. And I still use this too. I actually just turned it up a degree because it was on all the time for the summer. But it did a great job of keeping my tank cool because my tank was getting in the 80s. It was getting like the low 80s. And these coral do not like to be there. The only thing you got to make sure with this is it will collect salt up top here where the fans are and underneath it. It'll just kind of suck in that salt creep. So you got to make sure to keep it clean. And I just did that today. It was crusted full of salt. So hopefully it'll be in a much better shape to run longer now. And down here is my Neptune Trident. This is what I use to test the tank for alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium. I'll go ahead and put today's numbers up on the screen. And it's got a little haze to it because when I fill up my alkalinity solution, I use the Seachem Refusion, and it kind of drips over the top of that cover. But so that's why it's got that little haze on it. But this thing works great for me. I have to have this just so I know where my tank's at, because I can't be here all the time to test my alkalinity. I got it testing twice a day right now because I do custom schedules. And I could put that link here for you too if you'd like. And you can customize your Trident as well if you're interested in that. But these are my dosing containers back here. Like I said, I dose Seachem Refusion. Got the alkalinity. And the calcium one has calcium, magnesium, and some trace elements in it. And then I just recently started to dose phosphate. And I make my own. I'll show you the product that I use for that. So if you guys have to dose phosphate, I got this off of Amazon. If I can focus on it. There we go. And it was cheap. It was like 12 bucks and it makes a lot. So check this out on Amazon. You can save yourself a lot of money if you have to dose phosphate. And the return pump for the tank is this Higer one here. I'm sorry you can barely see it, but I did a review on it. If you want to see that in action right here. But it works really good for this tank and it puts out some decent flow. So that's my 75-gallon SPS tank that just hit its 7th birthday, and I can't thank you enough for sharing it with me. It's been quite a journey, and I really appreciate you hanging out and seeing it with me. Well, that'll do it for this video, guys. I can't believe this tank is 7 years old, and also the channel has just reached 3 years as well. So thank you very much for hanging out with me. It's been a wonderful journey, and I can't wait to continue it with you. I'm Reefer Matt. Thank you for watching, and happy reefing.